Hey everyone, this is a massive patch for 9.2 and the start of our new rank season. I actually kind of feel like this is what preseason should have been, honestly. It's a little bit insane. It's a huge patch. The meta will 100% change after this just in time for your rank games. But there are jungle changes as well, but that'll probably have to be its own video going properly into that. And then I'm going to focus on the champions and the rune stuff today. We'll start with the nerfs and then we'll go into the buffs afterwards. So the first nerf is an ignite change. The damage has been lowered to 70 to 410 from 80 to 505, but the cooldown has also been lowered to 180 from 210. They're kind of trying to reduce some damage in the game at the moment. Almost every single damage champion takes ignite, right? Because it is so good. In lane phase and mid game as well, ignite does about 25% of an AD carry's health bar. No joke. And that is also true damage, and it cuts the healing. That's partly why it feels so hard to stay alive sometimes as an AD. We're effectively starting every single fight at 75% health, and we don't really have a ton to start with anyway. It's probably going to limit like assassins and support champions more than others, I think, actually, in the game at the moment. But in general, it should just be a little bit easier to survive fights now. The biggest champion change that we have this patch are huge nerfs to Irelia. So there's a part of your passive that's been removed and no longer dealing bonus damage to shields and maximum stacks. The damage your Q does to minions has been changed from dealing double to dealing 45 to 105 bonus damage. Your ultimate wall damage has been increased. The slow is up to 90%. The duration is now 2.5 instead of scaling up to 3.5. But there is a part on it that's been removed. It no longer disarms enemies that pass through it. They're kind of like the first major changes since she was reworked ages ago, and it kind of makes sense what they're looking at. Part of the issue is her mobility, and her kit is sort of overloaded, like having stuff you don't really need, like dealing bonus damage to shields. The biggest part about this though is her ultimate now won't disarm, but obviously walking through it is still a really bad idea. 90% slow is basically being stunned anyway, and it does more damage. At least it will last 2.5 seconds instead of going up to 3.5, so you still won't want to go through it obviously, but you can fight back if you have to. That's the big part. The Q change is a little bit weird, so I'll do my best to explain it properly and simply, but it basically uses the AD ratio still, everything like that, but it doesn't double it. It doesn't double the base damage, but it gives you that extra flat amount. The easiest way to explain it is with an example. So if you have 170 AD in the game, right now it'll be 85 from the base, 100 from the ratio, which is 60%, double those to be about 370. The new version would be 85 base, 100 ratio, and then 105 extra from the change, so 290. You're losing about 80 damage now, and you'll lose more with more AD later into the game because you're not doubling the ratio anymore. Hopefully that made sense, and hopefully it also means that it's easier to fight her now in team fights, and she can't use minions to hop around as much anymore, or at least as easily as before. But overall, I'd say they're pretty big nerfs actually, and we might just be able to stop banning her now. Galio is our other quite big one. Q gust damage has been lowered by 20 rank 5. Mana cost also lowered depending on your rank, and your tornado AP ratio, so when it comes together, has been halved with your AP ratio. Galio is another seriously annoying champion that is way too strong in the game at the moment, and he's also getting hit with a round of nerfs that are very similar to what we had before. This version of AP Galio that we've had right now, the comeback recently, showed up because they gave him a bunch of changes that included a lower mana cost, higher gust damage, and higher tornado damage, which is exactly what they're changing again. It is still slightly better than before, so it's not completely bad or anything, but it's basically halving the buffs and actually making the tornado damage have worse scaling with AP than it did before. What this actually means in game is that he shouldn't be able to poke as well. He can't kill minions as easily and farm safely. He can't wave clear as well because it costs more mana to do it, and he doesn't scale as well either. So it's a nerf to his laning phase, but it's also a nerf to his later game damage with his poke on his Q. Though his ultimate and everything still packs a big punch, and once he's in there, it just kind of targets mostly the Q damage. Cassin is another champion getting a few changes. So base armor lowered to 20, and also the arm per level has been lowered a bit as well. The change is aimed at making him easier to bully in the lane phase, especially if you're playing AD against him like a Talon or a Zed or something. He is designed to be sort of an anti-mage, so you can't really touch that, but that means that he should be weaker to AD in theory, but right now I don't think he even suffers that much in those matchups. This is trying to kind of limit that basically, so saying that you have to beat him early game, giving you more chance to beat him early game, or that's really your fault that he is a late game monster. Urgot is pretty similar, same, just lowering his base armor, but they're actually increasing his armor per level, so they're giving him some arm back over the course of the game at least. It's making him a little bit easier to play against and kill in the lane phase without really hurting his mid to late game as much, which makes sense considering that that's where his real strength is right now anyway. But to be fair, I actually haven't seen him that much since the preseason started. Recon's also getting some nerfs, and I know this has kind of been like a wire nerf Recon. He doesn't seem that ridiculous, and they'll probably make a little bit of sense in a second. So his W dash speed has been changed. The delay on arrival before impact has also been lowered. So that looks really weird, and the first thing to understand is that he is way better at high reload than he is at lower brackets according to Riot. So he should feel relatively the same with the changes, but Recon spends more time traveling to the target position, which means if you're a pro player and you have insane mechanics, you have a little bit more time to react to a Recon RW or a R/W combo. For the rest of us in solo queue, it hopefully won't make too much of a difference. I don't think he's actually too strong right now anyway. He's decent, but I wouldn't put him in the overpowered section. Another look at damage as well. In the support role this time, we have two, so Brand and Zyra. Starting with the Brand changes, so the passive damage has been lowered to 3% maximum health over 4 seconds from 4%. 1% doesn't really sound too bad, right? It was actually 2% earlier in the PB cycle, so it might go back to that as well, but it is max health damage, and it will add up if you're hitting multiple spells over the lane phase or one after another. Right, I don't really think that he's risky enough as a pure damage option right now as a support because his base damage is just so high, which is 100% true by the way, and why Leandry's on him is so good. Hitting base damage means that when you get items, you're not going to feel this as much as before, so mid lane should still be okay, and it's actually a really old buff that they're taking back. They're actually not taking the whole buff back, but it used to be 2% maximum health damage. They doubled it to 4% and it instantly made him stronger, and now they're lowering that back down again. The other change is to Zyra. These are a lot more chill, I would say. 20 damage off rank 5 is a fair amount, but it's not her poke, and she doesn't always max this out first. Some players do actually max E first, and some players max their Q. If you max Q, then you won't really feel a difference until like mid to late game ready, but if you max your E, then it is more of a nerf obviously, and apparently E max actually wins slightly more, so I guess that is why they went for this instead. I personally don't find Zyra that hard to play against or annoying as like Brand, for example, so it makes sense to take some damage out, but they didn't go too crazy. We also have some stuff to Morello and Oblivion Orb, so the AP has been reduced by 5. Kind of surprised I didn't really look at the magic pen part instead, because I kind of feel like that is what makes the orb so strong right now. I still think people are going to get it because you can get the magic pen from that and from Sorks and maybe like sudden impact and stuff, and you're basically almost doing true damage to people, especially AD carries. That is why you get one shot sometimes, and it makes it slightly less attractive to buy it with less AP, but I'd guess people are still going to get it. Probably they just buy the orb a little bit more and then they just like skip the Morello and go into a death cap or something. That would make a lot more sense. So it isn't just nerfs, even though that is kind of the majority really. We have some buffs as well. So first up to Aurelion Soul. The Q recast minimum time has been lowered, but the stun duration now scales based on size. Basically, it's worse when it's small, but better when it's big. We had the other change before with the recast time, basically meaning that you can stun in melee range now, which makes him a little bit more viable. Like if a champion dives on top of you, then you can actually stun them and create some distance and run away basically. The other side is pretty cool though. So if you do that, you're going to stun for less time, but if you hit a max range Q, then you're stunned for a bit longer. It is over 2 seconds at max range, right? In rank 5, which I think is really good. Definitely likely to see a lot more Aurelion after these changes. Niko is also getting a few changes. So her W clone duration and bonus move speed lasts 1 second longer. Her ultimate no longer slows when she leaps, but the leap duration has been lowered. Niko is in a bit of a weird spot right now. Like if she gets ahead, then her ultimate one shot is kind of ridiculous. But if you can see her coming, it's pretty easy to dodge. Now she has a bit more like a jukiness. That definitely is not a word, but with a longer clone cooldown and more move speed to run away or run into a fight. And the leap duration as well before the ultimate hits is going to be lower, which means in theory easier to hit that ult anyway in the first place and actually do some damage. I still think once people learn how to use her, she'll be pretty good, but for now she seems a little bit on the weak side. Yorick is probably the biggest buff we have. There are loads of changes, so you might want to pause the video and just read through them, but there are lots of things like your deaths required for a grave has been lowered. The biggest thing is really your ultimate Maiden. The health has been changed, so it uses more of your health now and has less of a base. The bonus AD has been changed, but you can actually free her now by reactivating it and sending her down the nearest lane. It's probably going to be one of the changes I think that doesn't get much attention but has a massive impact in the game. His ghouls should do a bit more damage, but he'll be able to get them up more often, requiring less deaths, which should also mean that you have more damage in general. But the Maiden is now like a Rift Herald as well, right? It's got less base damage but over double the scaling from Yorick's health, so it'll be a monster late game using like 70% of his maximum health, and you can just unleash it down a lane. You go bot lane, summon it, free it there, and then move up to Baron or something. It'll literally split push with you down the lane. Imagine using a Zizirot and a Maiden together. Like that'd be the most cheese way to win a game, and I'd expect we actually see some stuff like that. We also have some rune stuff. So Overheal has been changed to 40 to 100% now of excess healing from yourself or an ally. We don't seem to know right now what makes that scale, which is kind of weird, but if anybody knows down below and has read it anywhere, definitely let us know. If we can now stack up to 100% of our own healing though, instead of just like the 40% before and 300% from an ally, Overheal heal suddenly becomes a way more viable option in game. When you have some lifesteal, the shield is actually still really good. It's 10% of your maximum health, and that will stack up way faster now. I guess what makes this a little bit better as well is Legend Bloodline. So the lifesteal one has been changed. So the lifesteal has been lowered to 0.6% per stack from 0.8%. That makes it look like a nerf, but the maximum stacks is now 20 instead of 10. So total lifesteal up to 12% from 8%. I run this rune anyway on some champions right now. It's really good healing with fleet, especially if you build crit and you can't build lifesteal early on. So I run it on like Tristana and Caitlyn. Giving 4% more lifesteal, even if it is a bit slower to stack, is way better. And I feel like weaker or crit champions get a lot stronger taking this now. Another thing that might help is a cut down is getting a little change as well. I'll let you read it. It's kind of designed to be more useful, and honestly it should be, because 100% more maximum health now for an AD carry isn't that uncommon. When you're hitting a big tank or anybody who's hit a few health items, you're going to reach that threshold and you're going to deal 10% more damage. It's probably slightly worse later into the game because it used to scale up to 12%, but it should average out to be more useful and a better option, I think. Couple last things. Sunfire Cape, the cost has been lowered by 150 gold. Minor change really, but it should make it feel a little bit better to buy. And honestly, a lot of champions that would buy this right now are not even meta anyway, but it's kind of like half a kill's worth of gold still, so it is a pretty good change. Finally then, we have our stat shards. So AP has been lowered by 1 and AD has been lowered by 0.6. Your armor has been increased by 1 and magic resist increased by 2. Basically reducing damage a little bit in favor of more defenses anyway. Again, it's not massive and not likely to change what you take anyway. It's just a straight up buff if you want the defensive side of things. So that is going to wrap up the first part of 9.2, and yes, just part of it. We have some jungle stuff coming as well, but that deserves its own video, so keep an eye out for that in the next few days. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you think down below. Just to let you know as well before I go that I am streaming every single day, pretty much twice a day actually now as well. The stream link is down below. It'd be lovely seeing some of you guys over there, but for now I will leave you with the robots.